Did you ever look at a jazz chart only to get overwhelmed with lots of complicated chords? Now, after years of teaching, I realized that most players never learned this shortcut that makes jazz easy. Just 5 progressions explain almost every jazz song, yet nobody seems to talk about them. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 progressions that my students use to quickly learn and play their favorite jazz songs. Before I give you the 5 chord progressions, here are 3 quick mindset shifts that make learning jazz songs 100 times easier. Most players don't struggle because they can't play the chords. They struggle because every song looks like a brand new wall of advanced chord symbols. And these 3 rules will organize the symbols into patterns so you learn songs faster and don't get lost. Rule number 1. Think in chunks. Let's take the opening of Autumn Leaves. If you try to memorize it as a list of chord symbols, it's this. C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7, A half diminished, D7, E minor 6. Now that's a lot to hold in your head, but if you think in chunks, it gets quite simple. 2-5-1 in B flat major, C minor, F7 to B flat major, and then a bar of the 4 chord, E flat major 7, and then a 2-5-1 in G minor, A half diminished, D7 and G minor. So instead of 7 random chords, you're really just memorizing 3 things that already make sense to you. More on chunks later in the video. Rule number 2, think in keys. So in Autumn Leaves, at the start, we're basically just in B flat major. So when you see C minor 7, F7 to B flat major 7, your brain can label that as we're just home in B flat major, and then we have a bar of E flat major 7, still B flat major, it's really just the 4 chord, and then the song pivots to the relative minor, G minor. So instead of thinking new chord, new chord, new chord, you're thinking this part is in B flat major and now we're in G minor. And here's why that matters, because once you know the key, you're not lost. For a few bars, you're living in sort of one home base and you know the common chords in that key. Now learning the song that way gets way easier. Now the last thing that makes everything easier is the chords themselves. Rule number 3, simple chords. Now this is huge, especially when you're learning a song for the first time. A lot of real book charts look intimidating because your chords have extra stuff on them. It's 9s, 11s, 13s, alto dominants, all that. But really, to learn the song, you don't need the colors yet. You need the function. As Joe Pass explains.
You must look at chord changes really in the simplest way you can look at them. Don't complicate them in your mind like it.
So if the chords look complicated, here's what you do. Ignore the extensions at the beginning and reduce everything to basic 7th chords. If the chart says C minor 9 with an 11, just play a C minor 7. And of course, if it's F7 with a sharp 9 and a flat 5, just play an F7. And for the B flat major 7, if it says 9 sharp 11, you can also just still play that B flat major 7 like this. You get the idea. Then make it even easier on guitar by using shell voicings. So just a 3rd, a 7th and a bass note. Shell voicings do 2 things. They give you the basic sound of the chord and they connect smoothly so that you can hear the progression and how the harmony flows. Same song, but now it's easy to play. And once you know the song, once you can play through it without getting lost, then you can start adding the colors back in. Extensions are the toppings on a pizza. The chord quality and the movement are the pizza itself. And if the pizza is bad, no toppings can save it. Okay, if you follow these 3 rules, chunks, key centers, and simple chords, then you're ready for the 5 progressions that show up over and over in jazz. Now remember that you don't have to memorize these chords off the video. Grab the PDF and work through it at your own pace. There's a link in the description. Chunk number 1 is the 2-5-1. If you only learn 1 progression in jazz, make it this one, because it is the sound of jazz harmony resolving. By far, the most important progression. Now the job of the 2-5 is to point at that 1. The 1 is the target. By the way, 2-5-1 just means it's the 2nd, the 5th and the 1st chord in whatever key you're in. Now in the key of C major, a 2-5-1 is then D minor 7 to G7 to C major 7. And that sounds like this. Now here's a helpful shortcut. A lot of the time your ear hears a 2-5-1 as basically just a 5-1 because the 5 chord is the one that really demands resolution. And for soloing, this is a great simplification. Barry Harris would often tell players over a 2-5, just play the 5. Now you wouldn't do that every single time, and I'm not saying that the 2 doesn't matter, but it is a really useful trick to have available when you're soloing, because it helps you hear what creates tension and how it resolves. Now you also have a minor 2-5-1. The minor version is just as common, and it looks almost the same on the page, with one important change. In C minor, you'll usually have D half diminished, G7 to C minor 6. The main differences are the 2 chord, which is half diminished, minor 7 flat 5. Now the 1 chord is minor, and usually the 5 chord is a dominant with a flat 9, but you can still use rule number 3 and just play it as a straight G7. It is still doing the same job, just pointing to that C minor. A practical shortcut: if you're looking at a 2-5, then check if the 2 chord is a half diminished or minor 7 flat 5 to determine if it's a major or a minor 2-5. And this is exactly what happens in Autumn Leaves. So C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7 is a major 2-5-1, and later A half diminished, D7 to G minor 6 is the minor 2-5-1. Okay, chunk 1 is the engine, the 2-5-1. Chunk 2 is the most common way that jazz uses that engine to create loops that keep the music moving. Chunk 2 is the turnaround. A turnaround isn't one exact progression, it's a category. It's any short set of chords that keeps the harmony moving and loops back to the beginning. Let me show you. So the most basic one is the 1-6-2-5. In C major, that is C major 7, A minor 7, D minor 7, G7. And you can hear how that doesn't really end. It loops and goes back to the beginning. Now the most important part. You'll see a bunch of different chord choices here, but they're usually doing the same job. So instead of thinking lots of new chords, think this is 1, then something that pushes forward, and then a 2-5 or a 5, and then you're back. Now here are the most common variations in C major. The basic one, just that 1-6-2-5. Now a lot of the time, the A minor 7 becomes an A7, because there's sort of a stronger energy towards the D minor 7. And then you have this. And sometimes the 1 chord is replaced by an E minor 7, but it's still essentially the same turnaround. The core thing to remember is that a turnaround is a loop. Its whole job is to keep the harmony moving and bring you back to the start of the loop. The 2 chords that keep you oriented are the 1 and the 5, so home, and the chord that wants to go home. Now the other chords are connectors that make the motion smoother, and if you're soloing and the changes feel fast, simplify it. Focus on the chords that clearly lead into the next chord so you don't get lost in the details. And there's a minor version as well. In a minor key, the turnaround is usually 1 minor, 6 half diminished, 2 half diminished, and 5. So in A minor you get So it's the same idea. It's a minor key turnaround that brings you back to A minor. So if you can spot a 1-6-2-5 in major or this minor version, you're going to recognize turnarounds instantly. Now notice something. In the major turnaround, we often change A minor to A7 to have something that pulls stronger towards the D minor 7. Now, adding dominance to create more movement is exactly the idea behind the next chunk. Chunk 3 is secondary dominance, and this is where chunk 1 sort of comes back, because a secondary dominant is basically sort of the same 2-5-1 or 5-1 pull, but then aimed at a chord that's not the main one or the main root of the key. In other words, it is a 5 chord that temporarily treats another chord like home. In the jazz standard All of Me in C major, you have the chord E7. Now E7 is not in the C major chord family, so it kind of looks out of key, but it doesn't sound random because it's doing a normal job. It's a 5 chord pulling to A minor. And even if it resolves to A7 the first time, you also have it resolving to A minor 7 a few bars later. That's a secondary dominant. Same thing with the A7, that's moving to D minor 7. That's also a secondary dominant. Here's the shortcut. When you see a dominant chord that looks out of key, ask what chord is this trying to go to? Most of the time, it resolves down a 5th. And once you start seeing that, those mysterious dominants stop being mysterious. They're just chords that point to the next chord and push the music forward. Now, a quick upgrade, the secondary 2-5. So sometimes jazz makes that pull even stronger by putting a 2 chord in front of the dominant. So instead of just a secondary dominant resolving, you will see a complete cadence, a 2-5. So in this case, a 2-5 in A minor. So instead of a secondary dominant, you can also add a complete secondary 2-5. Okay, let's get into a color chord that doesn't look diatonic either, but shows up everywhere, even in Radiohead songs. Chunk 4 is 4 minor, the minor subdominant sound. In a major key, the 4 chord is normally major, so in C major that's an F major triad, but a super common move also outside jazz is 4, 4 minor back to 1. F to F minor, back to C. So it's the same destination, but we're using the 4 minor as this darker sound to pull us back home to the C chord. Now here's the jazz version, same move, just using basic jazz harmony. And you can hear this in All of Me as well. Near the end you have this progression. Now the important thing is that the 4 minor is really just a part of a category, a minor subdominant family. Different chords, same sound and same job, and they can all resolve back to 1. Now here are a few common flavors that you'll run into, all of which resolve back to C. F minor, major 7, so in context that would sound like this. Another very common example is the flat 7 as a dominant, or the backdoor dominant, that's B flat 7. And if you put that to use, it sounds like this. And maybe the most beautiful one is the flat 6 as a major 7 chord, A flat major 7. And check out how this sounds. So, editing Jens here, I forgot to explain the Radiohead song. So the song I'm talking about is Creep, and if you play that in C major, then that's C to E and then up to F, so the 4th degree, and then 4 minor, F minor, back to C. This is one of the most beautiful sounds in harmony. Don't worry about the theory yet, just get used to the sound. Minor subdominant and then back home. Okay, so the next chunk. Another common way back to the 1 is the sharp 4 diminished chord, and you probably recognize it from the blues, where it's actually fairly common. Chunk 5 is the sharp 4 diminished chord. Now in the key of C major, that's F sharp dim, and in jazz, when we write dim, we usually mean the diminished 7th chord. It's not just a triad. Now this is one of those sounds that you've definitely heard, even if you've never named it. In a C blues, it shows up all the time, right here when you go to the 4th degree. That F sharp diminished isn't a new key or anything weird, it's just a chord that helps us connect back to the C smoothly. Same idea in the famous song St. Thomas. So this is in the last part of the song, and of course we're just first on the 1, then secondary dominant to take us to the 4th degree, the F major 7, and there we get the sharp 4 diminished to take us back to the tonic C. So if you come across an F sharp diminished in the key of C major, don't panic, now you know what it's doing there. Here's how to use these 5 chunks when you're learning a song. So step 1, find the key center for each section so that you know what the home key is. Here it's pretty easy because it's all E flat major all the way. Step 2, scan the chart and circle all the chunks that you see. And when you spot one, don't get stuck on the exact spelling. If it's a turnaround, just tag it as a turnaround. If it's a secondary dominant, just look at where that chord is pointing to. If it's a minor subdominant sound, just hear it as that color moving back to the 1. And step 3, finally just play the whole song with simple shell voicings so that you get the harmony into your ears and get familiar with the form. Like this, you're not memorizing 30 unrelated chords, you're recognizing 5 ideas and using that to remember and play the song. Now that you've got an easier way to learn songs, the next thing to build is your jazz vocabulary. And Joe Pass has a really solid method for this. You start simple, but you end up being able to do almost anything. And that's what I break down in this video. Check it out, learn jazz, make music.